Okay, so let's talk about one of the most secretive and honestly most speculated about gatherings in the entire world, the Bilderberg Meeting. You've probably heard the name whispered around. Is it just a private little club for the global elite to chat? Or is it something a lot more sinister, like a shadow government actually pulling all the strings? Well, today we're going to try and figure that out.
Yeah, this right here, this is exactly how people picture it, right? It sounds like it's straight out of a spy movie. This clandestine, shadowy club plotting to create a single world federation. It's the perfect image for a conspiracy thriller, and it really captures the vibe people get from this group.
So the big question is, how much of that is just Hollywood drama, and how much might be a little too close to the truth for comfort? That's what we're going to dig into. We're going to look at what we actually know and try to separate the real, documented facts from all the wild stories that surround the Bilderberg Meeting.
All right, so a shadowy global cabal? Let's get into what we think we know. For like 70 years now, this group has been obsessively secret. And because of that secrecy, it's become this total magnet for conspiracy theories. You know, the idea that there's this tiny, powerful elite controlling everything from behind the scenes. And look, this isn't just some fringe idea from the corners of the internet. The mystique around Bilderberg is powerful, it's widespread. So where did this all even come from?
Okay, so let's unpack the facts. We're going to pivot away from all the legends for a minute and look at the actual documented history. Because the group's origin story, well, it's not what you might think. It wasn't born from some plot for world domination. It actually started in the ashes of World War II, and believe it or not, it had a pretty idealistic goal.
So here's a quick look at the timeline. The very first meeting was back in 1954. It was held at the Hotel de Bilderberg in the Netherlands, and boom, that's where the name comes from. Just 3 years later, in '57, they had their first conference over in the United States. Now, it hasn't always been smooth sailing. You can see in 1976, they actually had to cancel the meeting because its own chairman, Prince Bernhard, got caught up in a huge bribery scandal. And of course, more recently, they took a break for the pandemic. But honestly, when you look at it, the fact that this has been going on for so long is pretty remarkable.
The original goal, the whole reason they got together in the first place, was to promote this idea called Atlanticism. Basically, after World War II, in the early 50s, there was a lot of anti-American feeling bubbling up in Europe. The founders of Bilderberg were worried about this. They wanted to create a private, off-the-record place where leaders from Europe and North America could get together, build trust, and figure out how to work together on big stuff like the economy and defense. The ultimate goal? To make sure another devastating world war never, ever happened again.
The two main guys who kicked this all off were a Polish politician named Josef Ratzinger and Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands. And, you know, while that original goal was super noble, preventing another world war, the group's stated purpose has kind of shifted. Today, they say their goal is to build a consensus around free market Western capitalism. And to do that, you've got to have the right people in the room. So that begs the question, who exactly gets an invitation to this thing? And this is where it gets really juicy. Because when you look at the guest list, it's basically a who's who of global power. So let's talk about who actually gets one of these coveted invites.
So get this, every year, only about 120 to 150 people get an invitation. That's it. And that's totally on purpose. They keep it small and intimate, right? Small enough that everyone can actually talk and have a voice, but just big enough to get a real cross-section of the transatlantic elite. And check out this breakdown of who's in the room. It's pretty fascinating. The attendees are split almost perfectly into 3 groups. You've got people from politics and government, people from industry and finance, and then people from academia and the media. This is absolutely not an accident. It is a very deliberate mix of public power and private money. They're creating this unique little bubble where big policy ideas and big corporate interests can meet, all far, far away from any public scrutiny.
Yeah, and we're not talking about your local city council members or mid-level managers here. The guest list is insane. We're talking heads of state, royalty, prime ministers, senior cabinet members, the CEOs of the biggest corporations and banks on the planet, plus top academics, major media figures, and even high-ranking NATO officials. I mean, just think about that for a second. That is an absolutely staggering concentration of power and influence, all in one hotel for one weekend.
Okay, so what happens when you get all these power players into one room? What are the rules? This right here is the absolute heart of the controversy, because the entire event is built on one single idea: total, absolute privacy.
The whole thing is governed by something called the Chatham House Rule. So what on earth is that?
It's simple, really. You are free to use any information you get inside the meeting. But, and this is the crucial part, you can never ever reveal who said it, or even who else was there. The idea is to let people be brutally honest. A CEO can tell a prime minister what they really think without having to worry that it's going to be on the front page of the news the next day.
Now, officially, the Bilderberg Group says this is all just an informal chat. Their own website makes it super clear. No resolutions are passed, no votes are taken, and no official policy statements are ever issued. The stated goal is just to let leaders listen, reflect, and gather insights. But you can see the problem, right? For critics, the fact that there is zero paper trail is exactly what makes the whole thing so incredibly suspicious.
So it's no surprise, right? You take that much secrecy, you mix in that much power, and you have a perfect recipe for suspicion. And that suspicion really breaks down into two main camps. You have the legitimate, grounded criticisms, and then you have the really out there conspiracy theories. And it's really important we try to separate these two things. On one side, you have what you could call legitimate criticisms. These are concerns about the total lack of transparency and accountability. I mean, is this a place for powerful corporate lobbying to happen completely outside of public view? Is it just fundamentally undemocratic to have a transnational power elite meeting in secret? Those are fair questions. Then, on the other side, you have the full-blown conspiracy theories. That Bilderberg is a secret cabal actively plotting to create a one-world government, or that they're engineering huge global economic events as part of some new world order.
And what's kind of wild is that these theories have been coming from all over the political map for decades. You've got right-wing groups like the John Birch Society pointing fingers, you've got the famous conservative author Phyllis Schlafly writing about it, but then you also have left-wing figures like Fidel Castro talking about it. And of course, in more modern times, you have theorists like Alex Jones who've made it a huge part of their platform.
Okay, now hold on. Because right when you're about to write off that whole one-world government thing as complete fantasy, you come across this quote. This is from Dinas Healy, one of the group's founders who was on the steering committee for 30 years. He once said, and I quote, "To say we were striving for a one-world government is exaggerated, but not wholly unfair." Whoa. I mean, for a founder to say that it's not wholly unfair, that's a pretty shocking thing to admit.
But then, to totally counter that, you have this quote from a former chairman, Etienne Davignon. He just laughs the whole idea off. He basically jokes that if they were a secret world government, quote, "we should be bloody ashamed of ourselves, looking at the state of the world." It's a great line, and a pretty firm denial. But still, that quote from Dinas Healy just kind of hangs in the air, doesn't it? It perfectly shows the massive divide in how people see this group.
So really, it all boils down to this one central tension. On one hand, you can make a pretty good case that leaders need a place like this, a private space where they can have truly honest, difficult conversations without having to worry about political spin or media soundbites. But on the other hand, we live in democracies, right? And the public has a right to know who's talking to their leaders and what they're talking about. The Bilderberg Meeting sits right on top of that massive fault line.
And that leaves us with one last big question for you to think about. We live in an era that demands, and rightly so, more and more transparency from our leaders and our institutions. So in this world, what is the place for a private, unelected, and totally unaccountable club made up of the most powerful people on Earth? Is there one? Well, that's something for you to decide.